Hi, welcome to my new video on Azure Resource Manager and ARM templates. That is Azure Resource Management templates. Let's first see the need for Azure Resource Manager. Before that, let us try to understand the basic concept related to traditional deployments. Assume you have an application made up of binaries, configuration files, libraries, services, and a database. So here, to host all these components, either at on-premises or at the cloud environment, you need various resources such as virtual machines, database server, load balancer, security services, web server, app server, and many more. Usually, you use either scripts or user interface or a commercial tool or combination of these to collect application dependencies and do manual configuration in order to set up the application running in any of the environment, that is either in the on premises or at the cloud environment. Other than the development environment, you need to do this manual configuration in other environment such as test environment or integration testing environment or then the production environment. While doing the manual configuration, we will face issues like number one, it consumes considerable amount of time to configure and the environment get it ready for application to keep up running. Second one is uniformity may not be there for every configuration in all the environment. Third one is support for instant creation of environment or agile environment may not be possible. Say for example, after a fix or after a new feature is introduced, if you want to do a quick testing, if you want to spin up an environment for quick testing, definitely it will take considerable amount of time. So these are the some of the issues that normally people face in the traditional environment. This need to be sorted out in the modern way of deploying the application it into the either the on premises or in the cloud. So to overcome all the above, we have the concept called infrastructure as code is evolved. Now let's see what is the infrastructure as a code. So let's get into automated deployments. In the automated deployment, using a scripting tool, you can form a script kind of stuff. That is basically nothing but set of commands. You can read those commands. This this infrastructure as code, otherwise called as IaC, will be prepared and version controlled in any version control system. These infrastructure as code scripts that properly describes the infra element that can be used by the cloud service. In Azure, it is Azure Resource Management Service to prepare the resources either in the cloud environment or in the on-premises environment. You can trigger an automated infra deployment using this infrastructure as a code anytime and also to any number of time. This will make sure that the deployments are all uniform across multiple number of environment. You can spin up a quick test environment at any given point in time. So by doing this approach, that is script infrastructure requirement like the server, storage, configuration, database connection, all the stuff as part of the infrastructure as a code and use a service in Azure, it is Azure Resource Management Service to make sure that the required resources are all spinned up based upon the instruction given in the IaC. While doing all this, The three issues, whatever we have discussed in the previous slide, that is the time related for deploying or preparing the environment, and then uniformity related issue, and then instant creation of the environment will take considerable amount of time. All three will be eliminated by going with automated deployment, that is using the scripts like infrastructure as a code. So let's get into more details about what is infrastructure as code. This infrastructure as a code, which will define the infra related requirement in detail. It talks about what is the configuration level information, how they are all configured, or how it should have to look like. All the informations are all given in plain English, that is represented in the JSON file format. This is otherwise called as a declarative script to define the resources either at the on-premises or at the cloud environment. Here, when you are declaring all the resource requirement as part of IaC, you can any change required, say for example, in introduction of a mail server, that can be quickly done as part of the infrastructure as a code. Since it's a kind of a file, this can be version controlled. And when you are using this IaC along with the Azure deployment service, where there is no human interaction is required. And in the script, you can pass parameters. Thereby, you can declare variables or you can use functions. So by passing the parameters, you can take an appropriate action. Say, for example, a storage name can be passed as a parameter. And based upon the name, some action or activity can be done during deployment. So to write this IaC, there are commercial tools are available in the market. The most popular one is from HashiCorp Terraform, and we have an Azure related IaC, and we have Amazon and also the cloud Google Cloud Deployment Manager, which helps in writing infrastructure as a code very easily. Now, let's see what are the benefits related to infrastructure as a code. The first advantage with infrastructure as code is it is very quicker. Since it's a script based one, making changes are easy and quicker. Second one is it is version controlled. Just like other software code, enabling easier collaboration and tracking the changes is possible using infrastructure as a code. Third one is automation. IaC can automate the deployment process, reducing the time it takes to provision resources and speeding up the development activity. Fourth one is no manual errors. It eliminates manual errors and ensures consistency in the deployment of the infrastructure, which improve the reliability of the deployment. And the fifth one is it saves time. It takes less time for deployment and verification of the deployment. And the final one is related to replication. That is, creation of identical infrastructure environment is very easy and you can test and deploy it in a short span of time. However, there are limitations with respect to IaC. What are they? The number one, merging two or more IaC to make it as a single IaC is not a direct process. That is, assume you have a deployment script and over a period of time you have created another deployment script, and if you wish to merge them together to make it as a consolidated IaC, that is not a direct process. It will consume considerable amount of time and effort since the ARM syntax structure with the parameters, variables, and resources is fixed, and other templates can only be integrated through careful merge process. And the second limitation with respect to infrastructure as a code is adding external files as an include file as part of the infrastructure as a code is not allowed. For example, if you want a list of IP addresses that need to be part of the main infrastructure as a code script, and if you are keeping that list of IP addresses as an external file and including them as part of the main file is not allowed. So having such kind of ideas, though it is good to maintain the list of IPs as an external file and you can add, update any items over a period of time, but including them as part of the main script will be a bigger challenge. So these are the some of the stuffs related, some of the limitations related to infrastructure as a code. Now let's see what is Azure Resource Manager. That's the main topic. As we know that the resources can be provisioned in a cloud environment very quickly, but also in a large number in orderly fashion. Based upon the previous slide, you might have this knowledge. The service which aids in such massive resource deployment and in an orderly fashion inside the Azure is called as Azure Resource Manager or ARM. ARM. That is that is infrastructure shall be created using code using infrastructure as code IaC. Azure Manager is a service from Microsoft to create, deploy, and manage the resources inside the Azure using these IaC scripts. So it provides consistency management layer that enables you to create, update, and delete resources in an Azure subscription using the ARM template. It's a kind of an API provisioning engine that builds on Azure and exposed to an API service. When you provide an engine with a JSON based template, that is a IaC template that specify the resources that we require and their configuration, the ARM automatically orchestrates the deployment in the correct order with respect to the dependencies as specified in the IaC script. This ARM is a JSON-based template, supports for parameterized input, output, variable declarations, and the passing parameters. And it is since it's a JSON file, it is readable and you can easily understand them. These ARM templates aids in deploying infrastructure as code. They are nothing but a declarative code that is described in the that describe all the Azure resources, and it allows you to instruct the Azure resource backplane and how to deploy the resources one after another. So basically, to sum up, this JSON based file describe everything related to the services required or resources required that need to be deployed in an orderly fashion. With that, Azure Resource Manager is a service from Microsoft to create, deploy, and manage resources in Microsoft Azure. So it provide consistency among the deployment. And so here the Azure Resource Manager provide a capability to deploy the resources multiple number of times to multiple number of environment with uniformity. Now let's see the next bigger topic that is related to ARM. If you see here in this picture, we have resource manager at the center can be used by Azure portal, Azure PowerShell, Azure CLI, REST clients, and they can connect to Azure Resource Manager. See this Azure PowerShell and CLI stands for command line interface, connect to Azure Resource Manager using SDKs. Here in this diagram, if you see, we have the Azure portal, Azure CLI, PowerShell, and REST clients. They are part of the management tool using which you can play around the IaC code or the template. So ARM is that it is just an automation engine This Azure Resource Manager is the central resource manager. They use their own authentication to ensure that the resources are all properly created with the proper authentication. Any actions that you perform on the Azure cloud, whether it is via Azure portal or PowerShell or through CLA or REST API, are handled via this centralized Azure Resource Manager service. So a user, preferably an administrator, can push the IaC to deploy the resources in a particular deployment environment. Let's assume you have an IaC that that is coded or described in such a way that it requires a data store, web app, virtual machine, and a service. All will be documented in the JSON file, and any of these interfaces uses this Azure Resource Manager service to create an environment exclusively for you. So in the JSON file, you will be specifying in which environment these resources need to be created. Collectively, a user, preferably an administrator, can push the IaC to deploy the resources in a particular development environment. The resource can be a data store, a web app, or virtual machine to a pointed deployment environment. The administrator, he or she can do multiple deployment uniformly across an environment. This means when you create an ARM template and deploy them, Azure guarantees that there is a consistency there. And now let's see the ARM template structure. So we are discussing that it is a JSON file format, human readable file format, and it is a declarative syntax. Otherwise, uh, I mean, this is introduced by Microsoft as a new infrastructure as a code that is called as Azure Bicep. There is another name. So if you look here, the ARM template, a JSON file where we define our resource requirement. That is one after another. This concept is called declarative syntax. This declarative syntax is where you state what resources you want to create without writing a sequence of commands to make it. Now, let's explore high level on the structure of the ARM template or the key elements of the ARM template. We have 6 major elements associated with this ARM template. This first one is related to parameters. Let's take this parameter as first. It allows you to pass different values to ARM template for use during the deployment. Some common examples which include the resource names or the Azure region name to host the resources. Second one is the content version. If you see, there is a version number specified here. It is just a version number that is used to track the changes done over a period of time. Incrementally, the version number may be increased to 1001. This property is just used to document the changes in your template, and it makes sure that you are using the correct template during the deployment. And so the entire file can be version control in any version control mechanism. And whenever you increment your version number, that can also be documented as part of the content version. Next, we talk about the variables. Here, this will define values used throughout the exam template. In simple word, you can define a short name for a specific value that can be used anywhere in the template. For example, a variable name like storage account name can be assigned with a value as department 1 storage account, something like that. So that can be passed to any of the declarative syntax. And let's talk about the resources. All Azure resources are defined here within this resources section. For creating a resource, we need to set up the type, name, location, version, and the properties of the resource that need to be deployed. Say, for example, type can be a storage account, name of the storage like department 1 storage account, location Eastern US, version of the storage account, and other properties associated with the property can be defined within this resources structure. And once again, I'm telling you this is readable and you can understand quickly what it is. So we can also use the variables and parameters here that can be declared in the variable section that can be passed to the resources section. The next one is related to output. This output defines the result that you want to see when the template runs. In simple words, upon completion of the entire script or the entire declarative syntax, you can throw a message saying the template is successfully deployed or the deployment is complete in this XYZ environment, something like that. So if you look here, it is a kind of an XML, usually in JSON file format. The top one will specify the schema. Okay, so this is how the structure of the ARM template lies. So these are the very key element like the schema, content version, parameter, variable, resources, outputs. Quite recently, there is an update with respect to functions. That's also added here, which is not shown here in this example. So these functions allow you to create complicated expression that you don't want to repeat throughout the template. These functions can be either built-in functions, which is available with Azure, or it may be a custom built one. These ARM template functions are lot of function in other programming languages, almost similar to that. You can call them whenever you need them, and you can pass information to them and expect a return value. For example, say you need to create a unique name for resources. Instead of copying and pasting the same code to generate unique name, you can create a function that makes it as a unique name, and thereby you can speed up the deployment process. Next come, let's see a bigger topic with respect to provisioning the resources in Azure. We were talking about deploying or provisioning resources manually, and as part of the first slide. As part of the second slide, we were talking about deploying such resources automatically using infrastructure as a code. So we also saw various channels through which you can provision the resources in one of the previous slide. That is here. You can use Azure Portal or Azure PowerShell or CLI or REST client, which again uses the resource manager service to create or deploy the resources in a particular environment. So now let's see an example. Let's take the Azure portal through which we can create a resource or set of resources in a specified deployment environment. So here you need to first open the Azure portal with your user ID and password. You need to opt for the type of the resource you want to create. You need to select the resource type, fill out fill out some mandatory information, something like what is the resource group, region, and other stuff. Validate the detail. You just click the command button create, and within couple of minutes your resources will be deployed in a designated environment. We are going to see a live demo of how to create a resource using Azure portal shortly. And upon creating a resource in an environment, you can capture the scripts, that is IaC, on the steps that you used to create that resource in a deployed environment. So from there, you can develop an infrastructure as a code. You can pick up that deployment script which is in the JSON file format. You can version control it using a version control system. Access that, make quick changes, and then use either Azure portal or CLI or PowerShell to deploy a newer resource quickly into an Azure environment. You can do testing and then move it into the next level of environment, something like promoting from development to testing, testing to integration, integration to production. So we are going to see three different ways of provisioning resources in Azure environment. There are many options are available. I will be walking through three key important stuff. First one is I'm going to use Azure portal to provision a resource. Second one is I'm taking the script out from here and then edit and deploy it into a newer environment. And then another thing is there are custom built scripts already available with Microsoft Azure that can also be used for quickly provisioning resource in any environment. We will see the live demo of all these three one after another. That is provisioning a resource using Azure, provisioning a resource using custom scripts which are available with Azure, edit any of the existing template and deploy a resource it into an environment. So these are the three things we will be seeing shortly from now. So let's see the first option. Here we are going to create a resource like Azure storage account. So the first thing what you have to do is you need to log in it into the Azure portal. I already logged in. And then what I am going to do is I will search. I'm opting for the create resource and search for storage. So I opted for storage account, and there are multiple number of storage accounts are possible. I'm picking up the standard one and trying to create it. So upon clicking the create, I have to provide some default informations like what is the resource group. I already have a resource group by name Azure Training, and I need to provide a unique storage account name. Let me provide it my storage, something like that. And you need to make sure that the storage name should not already exist. So I have to provide a unique name which is accepted now. And I have to select the region, performance, redundancy, and other detail. Then I can go for the advanced related information. These are some advanced details. You can pass all them. Like that, we have networking details, and the next come we have a data protection related stuff. I'm not getting it into detail on that one. And then we have to go and provide the encryption related stuff. And most important stuff is I need to provide a valid tag value pair. I have created a tag with the name and I provided a value for that one. And you can opt for the resource from the pull down menu, whatever you want. So upon creation of the tag, I can review the basic advanced networking data protection encryption and tags, and then just press the button create. So this will initiate a deployment, which means that in another few minutes from now, my storage account will be created under my subscription. So if you look here in the screen on the right on the screen, the deployment is still in progress. You can download the script information and use it for version control or to modify it and use it for later purpose. And if you see on the left hand side, we have various options for the ARM template like input, output, and other stuff. I'm trying to check whether my deployment is succeeded or not. So going it into deployment, I could see that the deployment is succeed. If you look the topmost row, my storage account, my storage XY is just created in just 33 seconds. In 33 seconds. And so here is my deployment. It provided the various operation details. We need not get into the details. So I'm going back to the main screen where I can view the detail or delete the storage account. You just press the delete button if you want to delete it. All the content inside the delete, including the container, will be deleted. So it is asking a confirmation from my side. So if I press yes, and then upon clicking delete, the the resource whatever we have just created will be deleted, and you will get a confirmation saying that this storage account is successfully deleted. And it, like provisioning, it will take a couple of minutes, and your resource, that is the storage resource whatever you created, will be deleted. And you need to be very careful the contents inside that storage container, like storage account, that is container, and files will be deleted. And you need to be very extra cautious in order to prevent a accidental deletion. You need to put some policies, and thereby you can avoid accidental deletion of the resources. So let's see the second option, that is creation of an Azure resource using ARM template. What you have to do is you need to log in it into Azure portal. Um, upon entering it into Azure portal, you look for or search for custom templates, and you will get an option deploy custom template. So select that one in order to create yeah, custom template from the existing resources whatever we created. So inside the custom template, go and opt for a newer one, that is a quick start template. And here you start typing the existing storage template which is available all with the Microsoft Azure. So I'm trying to get, if you look here, you have so many templates which are all pre-filled and it's available for you. So I'm looking for a storage template. There are plenty of storage, so you need to type more information in order to get the right template. So I am opting storage account. Yes, here I got the standard storage account. So that's the one that I'm going to opt it in order to create an account very quickly. So this is a template I'm opting it, and after upon clicking that, this is you are made available with the template. What you need to do is you have to select the resource group. I already have a resource group by name Azure Training, and the rest of the stuff that I'm leaving it because this is the preferred location for me. And I just review and create the template for me for my future requirement. So but the validation is paused, and which means that I am in a position to create a storage template. And upon clicking the create, within a minute, the resources are all getting created. That is, if you see here in the screen, the deployment is in progress, which means in another 1 or 2 minutes my resource will be made available to me. So this is a quick and easiest way to create a resource using pre-existing ARM template which are available with Microsoft Azure. You can edit those template before deploying them, but you need to have a good amount of knowledge on handling the ARM template. So if you see here, the deployment is succeeded, and so I can go to my dashboard and see the details of the resources. So you have various options here: overview, input, output, and the template information. You can select any one of that stuff, and I am opting the template. If you look here, this is a perfect JSON file containing the description or the details about the resource whatever I created it. What you can do is you can copy this stuff and then make use of it either with the PowerShell or Azure CLI to create a uniform resources as much as you want. If you look here, this code, you can copy and paste it in any editor, and then version control it, and you can use it for your later deployment. Also, you can improve it over a period of time. So this is the second way that where you can create a resource inside Microsoft Azure. Let's see the third option. Now let's see how to provision our own resource. Let's take an example, a storage account, that is build our own template. Here, you need, first of all, you need to log in it into your portal.azure.com. I logged in, And in the search box, you look for custom template. Um, it is custom template. So you need to select deploy a custom template. Upon selection, you got this custom template service, and you need to go and opt for build your own template in the editor. So we are going to use the editor, default editor provided by Azure portal. And if you see on the right hand side, we have the default JSON file which is created in line with the ARM template, consists of the key elements like schema, content version parameter, and resources. So what we are going to do, I'm going to add a resource. Let me say storage account, and I need to provide the unique name for the storage account. Remember, it should have to be all in small letters. I mean the lower case. And upon providing a unique storage name for your subscription, your template will be automatically filled with the data. If you look here, the default value is standard US, and you can choose any of the values from the allowed value section. And here the storage 1B name is passed to the resources, and we have the rest of the stuff is ready for us. You need not worry about the other tags, and you just save it. And then this storage should have to go it into as part of their existing resource group, review that code, and then create it. That's it. And if you create the click button, the validation is passed. Once the validation is passed, which means that our resource we are ready for creating the resources. And upon pressing the create, it is just matter of few minutes, and our resource will be created. That's a storage account will be created in the designated resource group inside the subscription, it into the selected region. And this is how we can quickly create a Microsoft ARM template. And this will be really helpful for you in order to quickly start with preparing online ARM template. So in order to get familiarized with the online template, you need to learn a lot, including passing variables, usage of function within ARM template, and many more. And this is not the right place to cover all those stuff. I will be publishing a newer video series on writing ARM templates that you can look for those videos in future. And we will move on to the next topic. Now let's see the pros and cons with respect to resource manager. It is almost same as that of the infrastructure as code, whatever we have seen at the beginning of this presentation. So in addition to that, additional benefits and additional issue list that is added here. Let's see them one by one. This resource manager helps in terms of deploying the resources in a simplest way. You can just mention all your infrastructure needs in a script file, and you can do a simplified way of deploying the resources using ARM service. You can do quicker deployment. Say, for example, if you want to create a quick test bed environment for a new feature that is introduced, or to test the issues which are recently fixed, you can do a quick deployment it into a newer environment. When you are writing IaC as a code, you can understand and analyze the resource dependencies. Fourth and most important one, during deployment process, if there is a failure, it is very easy to retrieve or roll back it into the previous state. So that is considered as one of a major advantage when you are using ARM or manager services. Most importantly, there is no charges levied to you or the customer when you are using resource manager. However, note one important thing, there is no fee charge for resource manager. However, the resources whatever you deployed, be it a virtual machine or a SQL server or any service for which you will be charged, and based upon the option that you selected, something like pay as you go model. So these are the some of the benefits in addition to the benefit whatever we have seen in the previous slides. And on the issues or the con side, though it is a simple text file to create, it require good amount of learning curve, and you need to understand the syntax, and you should have to practice well in order to write a very decent deployment script. If you are trying to prepare for a very complex deployment, you need to put lot of effort. And second one is it supports only for the limited resource types inside Azure. Though we have 250 plus services available, it is not supporting for all the resource types. And when you are deploying the resources through these IaC scripts, it will take some more time compared to directly creating such resources using Azure portal. And the last one, when you are using IaC as a code or the ARM template, it sometimes might lead to compatibility issues. Say, for example, the versions of the services might have got changed. New properties might have been added in the services. So such issues might be there. So these are some of the pros and cons with respect to resource manager. With that, I end up today's discussion. I hope this is a good learning for you with respect to resource manager as well as ARM template. And we have seen what is IaC, what is the what is automated deployment, pros and cons with respect to IaC as well as the ARM. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I am sure that it will be helpful for your interview preparation or for any academic preparation. And this is not the end of our session. We are going to continue with a newer topic sometime tomorrow. Till then, stay safe and bye now.